interpreters who will be on screen signing, and that will help for anybody in the session that needs that. And also it will help that when we share these sessions online and push them out, it makes them more accessible. So that's enough from me. Thank you very much for joining us, and I'll hand across to you, Ian.
Hi, thanks, Lee. Lots of familiar faces, but my name's Ian Lawrence. I'm clinical director for integration with Derbyshire Community Health Services, and I lead on the Team Up Derbyshire programme. I'm a GP by background, but I'm not clinically active at the moment. Let me just share my presentation, so bear with me while I find it and press the buttons. I give versions of this talk in lots of different settings. I've tried really hard to take the jargon out and the technical language, but to do that without insulting your intelligence either. If it's hard to do that when you're immersed in it, so if any sneaks through, then feel free to put your hand up and ask me to clarify. So Team Up, it's all about working together. But before I get into it, I'm going to just show you a brief video. The people in this video, one's Penny Blackwell, who's a local GP, and the other is Caroline, who's providing. Hopefully you'll be able to hear.
We'll give it a second, but it's not coming through with any sound at the moment, I'm afraid.
Let me try again.
I went into hospital. Laura's been in a surge capacity bed at Ilkeston Community Hospital since mid-November. She was previously independent in her own home, who'd gone round to look at her foot in the morning, who'd found her on the floor. I could not persuade the district nurse to pick her up, put her on the sofa, make her a sandwich, leave, and let one of us come round. So she got admitted. She's never going to now be home again. I went into hospital to have bilateral patella resurfacing, and then the following I was discharged, which was really good because obviously I wanted to be at home. So that evening I was having great difficulty just getting myself into a standing position, so I had to call friends round. They came round, very painful, but they got me off the bed, which was excruciating, and I managed to get to the bathroom. In the night, when I was on my own, of course, I needed to go again and again. I was putting so much pressure on my knees, and I didn't have a good leg to stand on. I felt something on one of my knees, and the stitches had burst open. There was blood everywhere. So I ended up an ambulance crew coming, and then they had to take me to A&E. And I spent quite a long time there. A couple of days later, the same thing happened. My other knee, the stitches burst open, and again, blood everywhere, all over my bed, the floor, everywhere. A&E were absolutely fabulous, because the one thing that they did do is to send out an occupational therapist who had a look at my home and said, your bed's too low, and that's the problem. So straight away, someone came and fitted something to higher my bed up. And that just made all the difference to me, because it meant I was comfortable, I was safe. It was a really traumatic experience. And I feel like all this could have been avoided if someone had just come out before my operation and checked what I needed in my home before the operation. It was just, a simple thing really that could have occurred that, in my opinion, would have saved such a lot of resource. My mother-in-law has been
So I'm quite sure that everyone on this call has got stories like those, or know people who have stories like those. And Team Up is all about how we make the NHS work better, particularly for people who need that care in their own home. I came to Derbyshire Dialogue back in May 2021 to talk about Team Up then. That was just after we got the green light to go ahead in April 21. And what I was doing then was talking about what it was we were hoping to change, what we wanted to do. And this is a slide I used then.
Ian,
yeah.
Ian, sorry. May I ask that you stop your screen share and just restart it, because I think the video has caught, so it just needs resharing, and it will come. The slide deck will show up again. We can't see the slides at the moment.
Is that better?
Yes, brilliant. Thank you.
Excellent. Technology, it's brilliant and it's frustrating at the same time, isn't it? Back in May 21, we were talking about that first line response when someone's at home and they call for help, and the fact that the person that comes is often on their own, and they've got this overriding need to make someone safe before they leave, and how a team-based approach should make that better. I'm really happy to come now, sort of 3 years later, to tell you what is changing. I mean, it's a journey. There's a lot still to do, but we've come a long way. A vision and a mission. These I know can be grating sometimes, but I'm quite proud of these ones. They really do describe what we're trying to do and what we are doing. So the vision is all about working together as a group of professionals, but also with the people we're looking after and their communities. And the mission describes how we're going to do that. So rather than us in an office in the middle of Derby trying to describe what needs to be doing and saying going off doing that, actually it's much more about creating the conditions for people to be able to do the right thing with the right people themselves. And I can't remember if we had this flower logo last time I came, but it came out of a reflection that a lot of the diagrams we use to help us within the NHS have got a person in the middle and then donuts around them. We're wrapping around, doing everything. Actually, my reflection is within statutory services, we drop into people's homes, we spend half an hour, we do our thing, we fill our paperwork in, and then actually the thing that wraps around people in their own home is their friends, their family, all of those other things. And we're transient passers-by, I think, and we do well to remember that sometimes. So what exactly have we done? This is a massive oversimplification, as you might expect. The first step was to get those 4 boxes on the left all working at a similar scale for a similar cohort of people. So the general practice at scale bit was around doing general practice home visiting at a community level rather than the practice level. That's been the biggest bit of work and perhaps the biggest difference that people experience. But alongside that, we've been developing the community response, which is district nursing, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, that sort of stuff. The adult social care response, so crucial in making sure people are and stay safe at home. And then actually, as we've gone along, we've added in falls recovery services, which are for people who fall at home, don't injure themselves, but can't get up. Traditionally, we've sent an ambulance, which has meant far too many of those people have been taken to hospital, and actually not using that really technical resource, but a car with someone with some skills and then some safety netting built around it is a much better way of doing that. So we've built those. We're now in the process of tying them together. So they all collaborate really well, but collaboration's different to integration. So collaborations that work separately, but they work well together. Integration is they work as one. So that's the journey that we're on. Excuse my fat finger. So in terms of that home visiting, GP home visiting at a community level, this graph shows the number of visits that we're managing to do within these services over time. As you can see now, we're up at about 5,000 visits a month, so a huge increase in capacity into the system. What that means is the people who come in a more timely way. They've got more time to spend with people, and also it takes that need from GPs in practices to spend an hour, 2 hours in the middle of the day out driving around. And actually, although we have similar problems in Derbyshire as the rest of the country in terms of access to general practice, actually we've got evidence that it's better here because of this additional resource. Some numbers. Huge numbers of home visits, but are those home visits any good? So nearly 90% of GP practices would recommend their home visiting service. They're quite a good barometer of quality. And I talked about improving GP capacity. Again, everyone supports that. Really importantly, the people who are doing the work are enjoying doing the work and feel like they're doing a good job. 95% of the people working in services would recommend their services. That's a high number. You would expect people to say that they're doing a good job, but actually, if you compare that to other parts of the NHS where it's sort of between 60 and 70% is the usual. So really great that we're supporting people to feel like they're doing a good job and feel like they're able to do a good job. The nursing and therapy bit. This is split into those who need a response in 2 hours and those who need a response today. 8,000 2-hour responses, 30,000 same day over the last year. And there's a target for those who we think need to be responded to within 2 hours to be able to do that within 2 hours. The national target's 70%. We're consistently getting over 80%. So really, really good stuff. Almost all of those visits remain in the community and are managed in the community, which is really positive. Linked to that, we're getting an increased number of referrals coming into those services from urgent emergency services. So what that means is someone rings 999 and instead of an ambulance comes a district nurse or a therapist comes, because that's the most appropriate response. And it is because they're managing that in the community. So really making a much more efficient use of our resources and giving a more appropriate response for people. I talked a bit right at the beginning about creating the conditions. I don't quite know how this will land outside the NHS sort of family, but the way we tend to do things in the NHS, we've got this need to be better, faster, more productive. We all recognise that. What we tend to do is people like me sit in an office and write some guidance, and then ask our clinicians, our nurses, our therapists are to go and implement the thing that we say is the best thing. There are two real problems with that. Firstly, it generates a level of disempowerment within the clinicians. They're always doing what someone else is telling them rather than actually doing what they necessarily think is right. And the second thing is it means that people in big offices like me end up spending all our time writing guidance, which frankly isn't the best use of our time, I don't believe. We've really tried to switch that on its head. So that same question at the beginning is always going to be the case, even if we got our wishes true and had as much money as we needed, we would still need to be on that continuous quality improvement journey. But instead of us thinking of the solutions, we're going to the people who are actually doing the work, the people who are actually receiving the care, and asking them how could it be better, and then we're trying to support them to implement those improvements. And the things that are coming out of that is we've got clinicians who are feeling more empowered, reflecting back on that last slide, that nearly 90% of them are really enjoying the work they do. And then people like me are spending less time writing guidance and more time making sure the environment is there, the learning networks are there, people are able to learn, and the infrastructure's in place. So by that I mean buildings, seats, cars, computers, all of that stuff, and that they all work well. Oh, I'm not being very good with my mouse at the moment. I've got another video. Shout if it doesn't work again. And
it's come through with video this time, but no audio.
I'll have another go.
Yep.
This is it's Lindsay, who is one of our community GPs. So. Give us a thumbs up if it works.
Work as a community GP for a PCN-based home visiting service caring for the housebound population, and I'm also clinical lead for urgent community response, which in Derbyshire falls under our Team Up umbrella. These roles are by far the most satisfying that I have ever held. One of the key elements for me of Team Up is that it allows me to work in a space where people traditionally fall through the gaps, particularly at times of escalation in a health or social care need in their own home or on discharge from hospital, for example, where it's always felt like we miss a lot of opportunities because we lack the infrastructure and systems and in organisations to work together effectively in a truly multi-agency, truly holistic manner, particularly for people with multifactorial needs. So finding a mechanism to meaningfully affect change in this space is a real challenge, but through Team Up, we have seen that sector walls, silos are tangibly being broken down. Team Up has in our system and in our localities empowered multidisciplinary teams to work together at a local level to build on their combined assets, to identify their own gaps. It's given those teams permission to develop bottom-up solutions and enabled their success. Really importantly, it's provided and developed trust from the system, from the organisations in allowing that to happen. Team Up produces outputs that can be difficult to measure sometimes, but we certainly do have evidence that the outcomes are impactful, that they are fueled by teams being allowed to determine and do the right thing for their populations. And really importantly, the feedback from frontline workforce, from managers, from leaders working in Team Up is that it feels transformative. We know that transformation can be hard. It does feel hard at times, but when it works, it is powerful, and Team Up is working, and it's a privilege to be a part of.
Can I just check that the slides moved on?
It has, yes, thank you.
Fab. Okay, so as I say, it's all very well people working in a service saying we think it's wonderful. Is it making any difference? And can we measure that objectively? As Lindsay said, that's quite hard to do. But this slide really helps. So what we've got here is people who are over 65 who attend A&E, and the green line is the national average, so the England average, the number of people across England who attend A&E, and then the orange line is Derbyshire. And as you can see, from 2017 up until last time I came and presented here, we tracked just above the national average. Since Team Up was launched, we're bucking the trend. So we've got less old people going to A&E. So something different is happening in Derbyshire, and I think something positive. To give some more detail on that, so this is a harder slide to follow, so bear with me. So it's the same cohort of people. So it's people over 65 who are going to A&E in Derbyshire. And what we've done here is broken it down by level of frailty. Now, I know frailty is not a heading that everyone's comfortable with, but it does help us in this context. So the blue line, the dark blue line is everybody. The lighter blue is everyone over 65 who don't have a frailty marker. The yellow line is those with severe frailty, and as you can see, the more frail people are getting, the less that increase in numbers of people going to A&E is there. So the previous slide, we're doing something different in Derbyshire, and it's impacting, and here it's impacting greatest for the people that we're particularly targeting through Team Up. So really positive stuff to see. Do people like it? Is the experience that people are getting from Team Up, is it any good? So I've talked about the people working in it like it. It's making some difference to the big numbers. We're getting lots of really positive feedback. I'm not going to read all those out to you, but I'll pause for a minute to let people read, assuming you can.
I don't think people will be able to see that. I can't.
You can. Shall I read some of them out?
Yeah, that'd be great.
The service I received from the gentleman was amazing. He was very thorough, asked me lots of relevant questions. He was very knowledgeable, knew his stuff. Felt like for once someone listened to what problems I had and would do their best to solve it for me. Gave me confidence in her, and I have a good follow-up. Thank you very much. I've got another slide. We've got loads of this stuff. So as you can imagine, my granddad had been visited by a paramedic who said he was from the South Dales Primary Care Network team. He said he was a new service team and gave my mum a card with a QR code to leave feedback. She said it was brilliant. I'm not going to read the others, I don't think, but I think the presentation's been shared, so you can read those at your leisure. And then a story, really. This is sort of feedback from Mary, who was seen by the Chesterfield team, and sort of the feedback. Yeah, the interaction was so positive. It meant the paramedic could get advice via the telephone, with the outcome of the patient staying in their preferred place of care instead of being transferred to hospital unnecessarily. That bit around, you could read the fact that we're sending less people to hospital as a negative, but actually the people who we're managing at home are the people who want and are better managed at home. So what's the future? What's our next step? It's as I said right at the beginning, that we're on a journey. I don't believe it'll ever be done. It'll ever be finished. But the real challenge at the moment is that bit I said around moving from collaboration to integration. So we're really beginning to understand what that means and what it'll take. And really the bit that's going to stitch it all together is a function for helping these people that we're trying to support who've got really complex needs find their way around a complex system. So some of that's about point of access, some of that is about navigating from A to B, some of it is about coordinating a team of people, and then there's a bit in there about planning. And this is the work that we're on with describing and starting to get going now. One last case study, I'll leave that up for you to read. It's a bit bigger than the others, but just I think Angela Pownell's on the call. She's one of the managers of the team up in the northwest of the county, and I've primed her to just come and give a little bit of a reflection around what it's like to implement a team up in a community, and then that's me done, and we can take questions, I think.
Thank you, Ian. Is that okay now if I come in? And when you say you prime me, can I just, for the audience here, can I just say I wasn't primed, I actually volunteered. It was me that came forward to Ian. So it was me that actually wanted to come and just mention some things today, because I feel that it's important that we listen to our staff and our teams, but also our citizens and what people are saying in our community here in the High Peak. So I did write a few things down. I asked the team and said, what sort of things would you like to say if you were there? So one of the best things for them and the improvement wise is that we're all based together. And they said that they found it refreshing. They feel they are autonomous practitioners. They feel clinically supported, but they have collective responsibility, which enables them to feel safe in their decisions. They have assurance, they have accountability, but this is shared, and the collaboration has easily moved from collaboration to integration, which has enabled them to feel empowered as practitioners. They feel that they're partners with equal importance across the system, and they're allowed with ease to network with no restrictions with their colleagues across other organisations. They've had improved access to systems, which has allowed sharing of records with patient consent, obviously, which has also enabled them to provide a better service. They said there's been a seamless reform, and this has occurred through a change in the culture, and that probably was the biggest difficulties for us, was the change in culture. They feel they give person-centred care and support, and for them, their competencies, their skills and their knowledge has improved because they're sharing their knowledge, but they're gaining knowledge from other people across different organisations. And I can say, in all honesty, I graduated 25 years ago as a dual qualified nurse and social worker. And we were told as a group by the Dean of the University of Manchester that we were the hybrid workers of the future. And I can honestly say, within my practice over those years as a registered nurse and social worker, I finally feel that we're seeing integration working. I finally feel that I'm using all the skills that I gained through my training. But most importantly, I think for members of our community, the feedback that we're getting from our patients and the people that we're seeing from the urgent community response and the home visiting service is that we've got that no wrong door approach that Ian has consistently told us about. We have a consistency of care. We can address physical, psychological and social care needs. So we're addressing people's well-being, not just their health care. We've improved efficiency, and that's through cost savings because we're not duplicating things the way we used to do. We're reducing time. GP cover, we've covered hundreds and hundreds of GP visits now on behalf of our local GPs, which has allowed our local GPs to stay in practice and open those appointments up to people that can get to the surgery. Our conditions and care have improved for people as well. There's been many challenges as we're 12-18 months into our service in the High Peak, but we've overcome them. We now receive calls from emergency departments. We've had calls of people who are in ED, and ED phone us and say, we've got this person, this is the scenario, and we can then assure them that they can send that person home. So the person's not been admitted as a consequence. We can access social care, act at GPs, full recovery. We provide support for care homes, hospice at home, linking very well with mental health services. I can see Mandy's here. Thanks to Mandy, we've got a really good collaboration as well from a mental health point of view. We have access to therapists as nurses, and within the team, we have advanced practitioners, a GP every day, enhanced clinical practitioners, paramedics, and social workers. So we've got an all-rounded service. So I think we provide care in the right place, with the right person, the right response, but the right care and the outcomes from the person, which is most important. And I could give you a scenario, Ian, if I had time. Is that possible?
I think let's open it up for questions.
Okay.
And then if we run out of questions, we might come back to you.
I've got a really good scenario. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And thank you for volunteering to share that, Angela. It's good to hear it, because it can somewhat feel a bit not tangible at times unless you know from the outside. So it's really good to hear it, and good if we can get back to that scenario. So first of all, I'll come to Mandy because you've got your hand up, and then I'll pick a couple of bits out of the chat.
Hiya, so I'm Mandy Goodall, the Locality Coordinator for the Living Well Collaborative in High Peak and Derbyshire Dales. If I got the mic so you can hear me properly. I just wanted to ask, the benefits are evident from what you've said, and great examples from Angela there, how the team all connects. So thank you very much for presentation. I was really interested to see how this actually works, because I have connected and worked over the last 4 years with different people in Team Up. But my question is, who were the decision makers to allow the teams to respond to local need?
Blimey, there's a question. Back before sort of May 21, we spent probably 18 months building the argument, really engaging with mostly clinicians, but some sort of people with lived experience as well, and testing the ideas with lots of people, and we developed a really good consensus. Once we had that, we needed to get a lot of people to allow us, one, to have some money to spend on it, and two, then to delegate the leadership, and that took a long time. It probably took us 3 months going to many different committees to get the ticks in the right boxes from the right teams. So yeah, so it's not a straightforward question to answer. I can see Angela's popped up. I wonder if you've got a slightly different answer to that question. But yeah, it was getting those decisions was an interesting journey in itself. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I'd add to that, so I did the place presentation last month. My name's Angela Wright, and the other side of my job is program manager for Team Up. So it's my job to operationalise Ian's vision of how we wanted it to be, and it is a huge challenge because of how Ian's describing the approach of how we were implementing a change in the NHS is completely different to how we would normally do it. You'd normally have a business case, and you'd really specify in a lot of detail how you wanted the plan to go forward. But instead, we were presenting to the teams, this is what we want you to achieve. How you actually do that, go ahead and work out how you do that at a local level. And so that's a completely different change of approach, and it was a risk, but a risk that's clearly paid off, and we're hoping to be able to transfer that approach to other things that we want to do as a Derbyshire system, because we think we could really expand its potential and as I say, transfer that approach to other areas where we might want to transform the way that services work together.
That's exactly why I was asking Angela, so thank you for that. From a mental health perspective, the collaborative are coming up with some fantastic suggestions for what needs to change, but it's getting those decisions and agreement to change it and fund it. So I just was interested how you'd achieved it, so thank you very much.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, I'm going to go to the chat now, and a comment submitted from Noel, or a question, should I say. How do you get referred to a local coordinator?
So I think that's relatively simple. You would go to your GP in the normal way. It's probably worth saying that team up services as a whole are generally around people who are housebound, so where we need to go into people's homes. But there are increasingly that's increasingly broadening out. So we've got people like social prescribing link workers who can do coordination more broadly than that. But generally, your GP is the place to start, or your GP practice is the place to start.
Excellent, thank you. And thanks for helping cover that off in the chat. I'm going to come to Pete from Wellington PPG's comment, unless covered later in the talk. Sorry, I'm interested in knowing how the survey mentioned early on indicated 86% improved GP availability.
Yeah. So it's probably worth being really specific about what that said. So as part of our sort of feedback process so that we know that we're doing the right job, is we do a regular survey of all the GP practices who we work with, who feed into Team Up, and one of the questions in there, because we knew this was one of the aims, was to free up capacity in GPs, was, do you believe the Team Up service has freed up capacity in general practice? And 86% of the people who tick that box said yes. That's very different to an 86% improved GP availability. I think there are some real challenges in general practice in terms of the how easy it is to get an appointment, and that's largely because the workforce within general practice is shrinking, and the requirement for appointments is going up. So the requirement, I'll get this number wrong, but it's in this ballpark, is about 20% more than it was pre-COVID. So the people ringing general practice has for appointments has gone up really significantly at a time when the workforce is shrinking. So that's what's driving the challenge there. Our contribution to that is helping, but it's only helping a bit.
Excellent, thank you. Very comprehensive answer there. We've checked off Simon's comment in the chat about accessing the Oliver McGowan training, which Angela has said is mandatory for all staff. So thank you very much for that. I was going to come back to Angela to get that scenario, but I can just see one that's coming from Lisa, a comment asking how you capture feedback from those using or those supporting the people who have or are using the service, such as carers and families.
So I'm going to briefly answer that, and then maybe go to Angela. I've got a feeling Julie Corn was on the call as well. She might have an answer too. So that's one of the things we don't particularly do at a central program level, but it's one of the things we're really keen that the individual services do at a local community level, and there are a number of different approaches to that. A lot of it's linked to the friends and family test, but we as a programme collate that up and pinch the positive comments and the stories to put in presentations like I've done today. I don't know if Angela or Julie or anybody else wants to expand on that. But.
I was just typing away to Lisa in the chat, just to let you know, Lisa, what we do in the High Peak is that we have the patient surveys that goes via the GP, so it's independent of our service in that respect. But we also have a local survey that we do with people, so we can either leave people a form and it's, you know, a list of questions, or we also have an administrator who will follow up with visits and call people. She will also call carers if there's a carer involved and the carer wants to be involved in that feedback as well. So we collect it independently, but also the practices collect it as well.
Excellent.
Is it worth me saying as well that we also have one of our service administrators that contact patients, and we've got a survey that we do for patients. It's a randomly selected bunch of patients, really, so that we try and not ask the same patient, should I say.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Julie. To the other bit, it's slightly separate to Team Up, but it's in the same place. Error Wash Primary Care Network have actually employed someone whose role it is, whose job description is to do community engagement. So actually, she doesn't get feedback from people necessarily that have used the service, but actually goes out into the community to talk to people who might use services, and that's her role. And it's quite innovative and becoming quite powerful. But actually, where it's that they're doing some work around increasing the number of people who have got high blood pressure who are identified and treated, and it's really supporting the way they do that, probably more so than our sort of care into people's homes. But yeah, there's some really interesting and exciting work going on around community and patient feedback.
And also, Lisa, for your information, we also survey our colleagues as well from across different organisations and systems. So if we've had interaction with people, we ask for a 360 feedback, and that can be about the individual practitioner, but it can also be about the service as well. And also the ICB, when they did the survey, and he's shown you some of the stats on that, I actually asked the data collector if she would add an additional slide for our area alone, and it was about me as a manager, because I felt it was really important that I listened to what the staff were saying, and that was albeit it's a small team, it was the people were unidentifiable, but they gave feedback about how I could improve things for them as well. So we do a lot of surveys and information gathering so we can continue to improve.
Brilliant, thank you very much. We've not got any other questions in the chat as of now. So Angela, would you like to give that scenario you mentioned earlier?
If I could, like, because I could give you lots of scenarios of how we've improved services and how we've integrated services, whether that's been, somebody avoiding going to hospital because they've come into the Cavendish for the day and had a blood transfusion and then gone home, or it's because we've integrated with adult care and we've managed to get someone in respite for just a couple of days for carer relief, rather than that person being transferred to A&E because the carer was breaking down. But this one in particular, we have a paramedic that works on our team, and she works with us part-time. And on her off days with us, she works for NWAS as a paramedic. And on this occasion, it was if she had been sent across the border from Stockport into Derbyshire, and she was with a colleague and she went to see somebody. It was a person that was living at home with elderly, frail, moving towards end of life. And a colleague said this person needs to go to ED. And because this lady had worked on our team, she said, just bear with me, I need to speak to this gentleman and his wife about what they want. And what they wanted was for him to stay at home. And because she's worked in our service, she actually said, I can guarantee I can get an advanced practitioner here. I know the service that's available. We can care for this person at home. And that's what happened. That's what occurred. But the beauty of it is that the lady's daughter actually sent a message to the team, and she said, I need you to know that unfortunately my dad has passed away, and this was 5 days later. However, he passed away at home with his wife, and with me and my mum lay beside him when he took his last breath, and that is exactly what he wanted. And I think if she'd not worked in this service in this different manner, her response historically would have been, absolutely, we need to put this gentleman in an ambulance and take him to hospital. And it wouldn't have been the outcome that he wanted, or his wife wanted, or his daughter wanted. So I just wanted to share that positive experience. And for the family, it was a very positive outcome.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm just going to respond to Noel's comment in the chat around South Derbyshire. So we've got these services right across the county. they all got going at different paces and in different ways, and it's probably fair to say that South Derbyshire were one of the later ones to the table. But I was in Swaddling Coat just last month, speaking to the GPs there and the service there, and they have a service and it is working, and they're increasingly building the links with their other colleagues. The thing that I think has been particularly strong in Angela's patch is the close working between general practice, adult social care, and community services. Some of that's because of work that has been done over many years. Some of it's because they're all in the same room almost. Some of it, I think, is because Angela's got that social work background, that hybrid background as well. But yeah, people are at different paces, but it's happening everywhere and working everywhere.
Excellent. That sounds great. And I know in the certainly I'm part of the ICB communications team, and it sounds interesting if I could get some of these bits on case studies if they're not already, because it really kind of brings it home. Fantastic. Are there, if I just put it out to the room now, does anyone want to raise any hands, any more comments or any questions? Just checking I'm not missing any hands scrolling through the participant list, which I have been known to do. Some positive feedback coming in through the chat. And not too many questions often means a presentation well delivered. So well done there, Ian and team and colleagues, and thank you for joining in.
Yeah, apologies for some of the technical issues, but I think we managed them as we went.
You can try these things as many times as you want in testing them. You never know till on the day and at the time. I've been there before, and I'm sure we'll be there again. Well, if there's no more questions, then I'll put it back to yourself, Ian, and just check there's nothing more that you'd like to say. But really comprehensive presentation. Good to see the numbers and then also get some case study examples. I think that moved on nicely from the last dialogue session, which was about place, and we can link to both of those sessions after via email. So anything else, Ian, or do you think we've covered it there?
I think we've covered it. I'm happy to take questions afterwards at other times, at any time really. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Also, thank you to Jess and Helen for signing, and all the other people that contributed both on screen and in the chat to keep the conversation moving. We got some stuff covered there as we were going, which is great, and what dialogue is all about. So other than that, Mark's going to drop some details in the chat on the next session, how people can join there. We host all sessions that have taken place on a section on what we call our Derbyshire engagement platform, so you can watch recordings of past sessions, including today's. Sign up for future sessions of which we've got a few different topics. So thank you very much all. I'll let you go and enjoy this not so hot and sunny June afternoon. Thanks very much, and I'll catch you next time.
Thank you, Lee. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.